Hi there, my name is Charles Laux, and I am going to be presenting a session here today entitled Bridging the Connection, Bringing COVID Technology to the Live Orchestra Class. And I hope that you will be able to find this information helpful. There's a lot to cover today, and I want to get going with it. We are in a very unique time right now. We are coming off of this crazy pandemic. All of us had very different years teaching. For me, I just finished year 25, the most bizarre year ever. And probably I would say my worst year ever. While I'm a technology person, there's nothing like meeting face to face with students and being able to do what we love to do, which is make music. In my situation, I had only about 15% of my orchestra students return face to face, while 85% stayed home the whole year. And so my classes are not gigantic to start with. So when I'm missing a lot of my students, it really is difficult. So my largest class, which is my youngest class, had about 13 students, which was a decent size to be able to do some things with. But beyond that, my classes were 5, 3, 2, and 3. So very, very small classes. This obviously made things difficult. Um, you know, uh, Students are in our classes because they love to play together. And when they have a very small group to play with, it kind of isolates them and makes them a little bit more self-conscious of their playing. And so I was very, very proud of my face-to-face students this past year because they, stuck it out. Particularly my smallest class, which had 2. For a while, it was just 1. And, it's kind of in an awkward situation with everybody's online and you have 1 student face-to-face. But he was a trooper and we got through it and had a pretty good experience. So I'm going to be talking today about some of the things I did during COVID times, and actually some of the things I did before COVID times, I actually got to do during COVID times. It was just kind of implemented a little differently, and how we can bring some of that great technology back to the classroom when we have everybody back, hopefully, which we're going to consider a normal year this coming up this school year. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of my students face to face, but also being able to take some of the things that we've learned. I've learned a lot, not just regarding technology, but just in regards to teaching and compassion and empathy and how students, function on their own. So they need us. They need us to help guide them. We have a lot of students who kind of fell off the boat this year. A lot of students who just some of my star students who struggled at home. So I'm looking forward to getting back to normal, to being able to do these things. But hopefully some of the things I'll show you today, the technology will be beneficial and interesting for you to be able to take with you. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. So as I said, this is called Bridging the Connection. My situation at Alpharetta High School, we're just north of Atlanta. I have 5 orchestra classes. Each of them is ability-based. I have a wide variety and diversity amongst my students, from students who struggle holding their instrument and, reading notes and playing in tune, to students who audition for music conservatories. So everything in between. I love that diversity. I love being able to work on some of the younger and beginning level pedagogy. And I also love making amazing music with my top ensembles. And then, like I said, everything in between. So we do a lot of work with technique. We do a lot of work with musicality, and we do some remedial beginning stuff. Obviously, we're all technology experts now, aren't we? Right? After this pandemic, we were thrown into having to teach remotely, at least for the second half of the 1920 year, and then for me, we were remote for the beginning of 2021. We slowly came back, but again, a lot of my students stayed home. I know everybody's in different situations, but we've all been forced to find creative ways to teach, creative ways to do things, to do, what we used to do. Or for a lot of us, we changed our ways and we were doing things that we would never have done in a classroom, or maybe more of. So particularly maybe solo playing, maybe you did a little bit of that in your class or none of that. And during COVID times, you did a lot of that. So what what I tried to do during the pandemic was to try to keep things as normal as possible. And I know that was really, really different and difficult. But the way I was able to do that is I tried to emulate that group playing experience at home. So playing a lot with accompaniments. And there were times and days that I felt like I was a DJ, starting and stopping tracks and whatnot more than I was a teacher or a conductor. Did very little conducting this year. We did not end up having a spring concert, which was outdoors, and it was a limited scale, fewer tunes. I combined orchestras. All five of my groups combined down into just two groups. So it was a challenge that way, but we were able to pull it off with only a few face-to-face rehearsals and not including everybody by the use of accompaniment. So we're going to be talking about that. But your situation, is going to be a lot different than mine. Some classrooms changed dramatically. Some just changed a little bit. Depends on how many students came back and how it worked for you. Everything was different. But the number one thing that really impacted me, regardless of uh, being face to face or remote, was just that lack of communication. And obviously, with the remote students, you have cameras off, not on all the time. Um, you're wondering what they're doing. Are they practicing? Are they participating? And then my students who were in class, they all had masks on. I had a mask on. So there's a lack of communication that way too. So one of the things I'm looking forward to is just resuming that communication link, the facial expressions, all those great things. But we all have different situations. We're trying to figure out now, what can we use from our pandemic teaching when we come back to the classroom? And for everybody, it's going to be different situations. I'm going to show you some of the ideas and things I'm thinking of. Some of the things I did before the pandemic, but continued during the pandemic and will continue to do after as well. So obviously, we're using technology because we're comfortable with it, especially now. It's become an expectation. It's in our students' everyday lives, right? But the other thing you need to think about too is, there are some financial resources available for technology that aren't necessarily available for traditional materials, whether it be instruments or music. But when it comes to technology, there's a lot more money in those technology pots than there are for most people in the traditional equipment or music or whatever we're trying to buy. So, and the great thing about technology is ever changing. So there's always going to be something new. There's always going to be something that may help you. But the number one thing, no matter what we're talking about, I, I always ask teachers to think about, what do you want to do? What are you trying to accomplish in your classroom or virtually or whatever? And can technology make this better? Can it help it? Can it enhance it? If the answer is no, if the answer is it's better to probably do it a different way, then don't use technology. But if you say, yes, it could make it better, it could enhance it in this way, you have to figure out how it can work. Will it be more efficient for you? Will it be something that enhances the student experience, or will it detract from that experience? I know there are some things I've used in technology um, students just did not like. And so for me, it was had a detrimental effect. And so I started, not using the technology for those particular things. So you have to figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work for you in your situation with your students. And my students are different from your students, are different from so-and-so students. And it all depends on the level, the age, the environment that they are raised in, and the expectation that you have and they have for what's going on in your program. So some things to think about. If you are not comfortable with technology, even after all of this pandemic work, take some baby steps. And, sometimes you have to take chances, right? Things that we can do to be effective, seeing things from a student's perspective, bonding with them, getting to know them. Hopefully this will be easier this year. If you had new students last year, like my freshmen that came into my high school program, if they were at home, I feel like I really didn't get to know them that well. So I'm really looking forward to this coming year, having that face-to-face experience again, embracing their culture, their learning styles, um, figure out what works for you. And for a lot of students, it's combining what we do orally with the visual part and putting those together. a lot of times it's more effective. But most importantly, be willing to adapt to your situation, to our students' changing needs, and customizing your curriculum. No matter what method book you use, you're always going to find things that you're going to need to supplement and customize that. It doesn't matter. There's no perfect book. There's no perfect method. Everything needs to be customized. And the best teachers are the ones that can diagnose what's going on with their students and figure out what they need to do, what works best for them, right? To make their students successful, to make their students excited and motivated to want to practice, perform, and continue to stay in your program, okay? So remember your audience. They are digital natives. They grew up with technology, unlike a lot of us, particularly the older teachers have been around for a while. If you're interested in reading about some of the different generations, check out the book called Grown Up Digital by Dan Tapscott. It's a fantastic short read that will kind of make you see things in different ways and how students think and how students today that were raised on digital technology, kind of what they're thinking about and what drives them, right? There's so many negative views of our current generation. We can't blame the kids. We remember that, we change as we get older and our students change. So I'm not teaching the same way now that I taught when I first started teaching 25 years ago. Everything changes. And so we have to try to stay with that. So if you're not a techie, start small, try something. Remember the Yoda saying here, the difference between a master and a beginner, the master has failed more times than the beginner has tried. So it's okay to fail in your classroom. It's okay to be there. Everything's not going to go perfectly. Even someone like myself, I know a lot about technology. I feel very comfortable with it. I try things. It doesn't always work. So, all right. The other thing we need to think about is that today's students are not these words. You see a lot of this stuff in the media. They're lazy. They're, distracted. They're unrealistic. They're not good communicators. I think that's not true. Our students today want to have their voice heard. They want a say. They want to collaborate. They want to do good things. So I think of today's students as being creative. I think that they're collaborative. They love to work together in groups. They love to be technical. They love coming up with being able to say things and figure out things that I don't know. I think they're critical thinkers. I think they communicate well. Now, they may communicate in a different way than you and I communicate, but they definitely communicate. And I think they love solving problems. So we have to kind of embrace some of the things that today's students really are, and keep them going that way. And so technology is one means to get our students to be good critical thinkers and communicators and problem solvers. And so we're going to talk about some of those things right now. I frequently use memes and things I find on the internet to motivate my students, to make them laugh a little bit. I really like this one. It's should you be practicing now? And then it goes for these questions. Are you a musician? Is there someone better than you? Exactly. But these are some funny things. No matter what, don't stop, keep practicing. Try to keep my students motivated that way. I also use some funny things like this. Had a choice, didn't choose orchestra. How sad. And the before and after, this is one of my favorites. Drugs, alcohol, chocolate, and then, of course, orchestra. So finding things to make them laugh. You could use these at the beginning of your classroom. This is another classic. Even the double bass has some use, but we have the violas there. No, I'm just kidding, violas. It's the funny one. Anyways, so we're going to go through some of our some of the strategies and technology that I've used in rehearsal and for students to use at home, and then combining those things so that way you have kind of a seamless technology integration into your classroom. So when we start thinking about using this technology in rehearsal, some of the things that I've been doing for a long time is I try to automate my classroom, try to keep it so the students, there's an expectation of what they're supposed to do. The class starts and they're able to begin doing that, right? Whatever it might be. So we're going to talk about some tuning procedures, some warm-ups you can use. And the reason that we do this is so that way we can get away from the front of the classroom, get off our computer, whatever we're having to do, or off the podium, and go and walk around our classroom. And this, for me, helps students focus. I find it keeps them engaged because I can walk around and I can say hi to some of my students and can get closer to them, especially those students who are in the back that you really don't get to be close to very often. This is that time. So I can go back and I can say hi to them. I can help them with tuning. When they're doing their warm-ups or scales, whatnot, I can help with hand positions, suggest some fingerings. If we're working on shifting, I can monitor some of those technical things closer. So having some kind of automated way, and we're going to show you some accompaniments and things like that are really helpful. Get closer to your students and increasing that proximity to them. For a lot of my students, it enhances their rehearsal. It makes it a little bit more exciting, especially the beginning stages when we're first starting to learn the music or learn different techniques. Having an accompaniment, having something going on aurally or visually helps enhance that experience for them. And remember, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to, whatever I show you today, you may have to make adjustments, okay, for your situation, whether you have big classes or small classes, or your comfort level with technology or whatever, or your equipment that you have available. These are things that you have to consider as we go through. All right. So the first thing we're going to show you is an automated tuning sequence. And this tuning sequence I've been using for a very, very long time. I recently created videos of the tuning sequence too to put on YouTube. So there's audio tracks and there's video tracks. But for me, it automates the tuning sequence. I can start the audio. I usually start it from my iPad. You can start it from a phone or whatever, going through the speakers of my room, and it gets the students focused. So as soon as they hear that starts up, the talking winds down, and we get focused and we're ready to go. It eliminates wasted time during tuning because, when you're running the tuner, you can get distracted and forget to do this. Or if you're having to help your students tune, this is a great way to just keep them on task and eliminate downtime. I've created different lengths, or what I call versions, of my tuning tracks, and essentially they're all the same, but I've changed the length of each pitch. So we start out doing, each string individually, and I give them a certain amount of time on each string. But as we go through, the students get better at tuning and they're getting more efficient. So I have to reduce that time a little bit. And so otherwise, they do start to go off task. So as they start to get better at tuning, we reduce the time on each string, and it caters to their ability level a little bit. So I'll show you an example of what that looks like. Here is the video version. Everything that I'm showing you today is available on my website. It's orchestrateacher.net. And I'll be sharing that information with you again at the end of the session, and you'll also see it in the session handout. Cross-tuning sequence for orchestra. A string. We go through, we internalize the pitch, we sing it, and then we listen, we internalize, and then we play it. So real simple, and it just goes through. And again, this is a very, very quick version for demonstration purposes. But you'll notice, listen to that audio. You're also going to hear a fifth in there too. C string. I found having that fifth helps them kind of cross tune and helps them understand that relationship between the note they're tuning and a different note, so that they start to lock in E string, their particular note. This is just an example of my tuning sequence. Definitely want to check that out, or make something yourself that will help you automate that tuning sequence. Time to double check your tuning. Every day. We do a quick double check. We go through the strings quickly. Again, this is a very sped up version of this, but again, it caters to the needs of your student. One of the things I have to do at the very beginning of the year, particularly, even with, I would say, my second and maybe sometimes my third year, third level class, is just to go through and double check our bow holds, double check our bow technique. And these pre-bow warm-ups, something I came up with a long time ago. I had a video that got kind of popular, teachers were using, and just to go through lots of different exercises that help reinforce the hand shape, strengthen the fingers, strengthen the muscles in the fingers, and just reinforce that bow hold checkpoints. And so I've used some small bows, bows that have been cut off. Always save your bows. Don't ever throw them away. And just, chop them off with a saw. And then you can have a class set of these things to use to go through these exercises or just reinforce. Even with high school students, you're going to find that they're going to, have lots of different problems, whether it's the pinky or the straight thumb. Those are the two big ones for me. And these exercises go through. So again, when these are going on, I can go around and help students. These are kind of catered towards younger students, but you'd be surprised that the older students will laugh a little bit at them, but they'll go along with them too. So the original video, there's a link there to it, and it'll be it's on the website. And then the version 2.0 I made last year during COVID time, and it's been really popular with teachers and students to be able to just do these things at home. So by having videos online, we're going to talk about this. We're flipping that classroom. We're letting students not only use them in class, but they can use them at home. So you're taking that instruction to the other side. Here it is. All right, we're going to do some bow warm-ups. You're going to need only your bow and not your instrument at this time, so make sure that's in a safe place. We're going to start by going through the checkpoints of a great bow hold, because this is super important as we go through these exercises. First, you're going to make sure that all of your fingers are naturally spaced, curved, and relaxed. We're going to put our fingers and we're going to curve them around the frog, around the stick of the bow. We're going to make sure that our thumb has that bump. Really important that our thumb has that bump at all times when we're holding the bow. Are you ready to start? Well, here we go. The whole video is about We're going to get set by making sure that we have good bow hold with all those checkpoints that we just talked about. You ready to do some pinky push-ups? Well, let's do it. Here we go. 1. All right, now we're going to lift each finger sequentially, but first, check that thumb. Is your thumb bent? Is your thumb bent? Is your thumb bent? Oh, good. All right. We're going to lift each finger sequentially. We're going to do the finger wave. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good job. Now take both your hands and wave. Let your wrists be flexible. Keep your fingers relaxed. Good. Now we're going to do some paintbrushes. Side to side. We're going to stir the cauldron. So you can check that out. It's on, again, orchestrateacher.net. You'll find a link to the YouTube channel where everything is located, if that's helpful for you. Part of my dissertation research involved, the whole dissertation research involved students playing scales with drone accompaniments. And there are a lot of practitioner journals that have always said, practice with drones. Drones are great. But there wasn't a lot of research showing whether or not they were effective or not. And I know through my own experiences that drones have really been helpful with students playing scales. They help students understand the relationship between a tonic pitch and the note they're playing. And so for me, it's helped my students play more in tune. My dissertation research did not always show that, but what I did find is regardless of what accompaniment students played with, they adjusted pitch more frequently. And so for me, that says that students are listening more because they're adjusting more. So for me, that's a good, I always took that as a really good sign. If they're adjusting, then they're listening. And so hopefully that will help them, find that right pitch and play in tune. So I've done scales with drones for a long time. Here's an example of C major scale. The harmonic background helps students, adjust and hopefully lock in that pitch. We go slow, we take our time, and that gives them that time to make those adjustments. So here's what it sounds like.
C major scale.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Example of a 2-octave scale. This one has the scale, the arpeggio, and broken thirds. It's a different accompaniment. It's not just a drone. This is kind of a harmonic accompaniment that, again, just helps them adjust and tune. And the rhythm track makes it a little bit more interesting and also keeps them together. But I use these during COVID times. I've used them before, and I'm going to continue to use them because I do think that it makes playing rudimentary things like scales, arpeggios, and broken thirds just a little bit more exciting, and keeps everybody together, and will hopefully motivate them to practice at home. So here's our D major example.
D major, 2 sharps. 1, 2, ready, and play.
Essential technique, essential elements, textbook 3. Here's your arpeggio. And then the broken thirds. You really want them to hear, be able to hear that bass line. Next thing I do, I'll take simple tunes, any kind of simple tune, and create an accompaniment for it. And for me, again, this is something I use when I was teaching beginning strings. And you can do this with older students too. Create tunes that they're going to maybe memorize or teach a new position. This is a very simple tune, as you can see, made for beginners. It goes to the note D, E, F sharp, G, and then A. A is open. But if you have, students who are ready for the 4th finger, you can throw that in there. Or if you have students, who are learning some 3rd position, this might be a good tune to make them play the whole thing in 3rd position, But finding simple tunes, making accompaniments for them. This one called D-String Rock. It's been pretty popular. I created an audio track for it a while ago. And then again, last year, I was like, well, everybody's doing videos now. So I created a kind of a play-along video to go along with this, but just an idea to keep things exciting, making accompaniments for very simple tunes. You can find this on the website, orchestrateacher.net, and you'll see a tab called Tunes and Tracks. You'll be able to download the accompaniment. You'll get a link to the video, and then all of the sheet music is on, because this is a free tune to check out. So here's D-String Rock.
Rock and roll, rock and roll.
something, similar. So using audio accompaniments in rehearsal, as I said earlier, I kind of felt like DJ Laux rather than Dr. Laux many days as we were rehearsing in class. But for me, it was essential during my teaching, and I also have used it and will continue to use it in face-to-face. Probably a little bit less face-to-face than, obviously, because we're going to be working on playing without an accompaniment and conducting and watching the conductor and all that. But there's lots of different ways to make accompaniments. One of the ways you can do it is to use, if you can find the publisher's audio track. A lot of publishers are just having full recordings now that they make available. You can download those. I'll throw that into my digital audio workstation. I use Apple Logic. You could use GarageBand. You could use Audacity. Anything that you can put audio in. I'll record an introduction. So I'll say this is whatever piece, and then I add a metronome click to that track. Now that's a little tricky. It's not just something I can program in and hit go, and it's going to create an accurate metronome click. So what I had to physically do is I would take my little keyboard. I have a little MIDI keyboard or any MIDI keyboard, and I was able to put on a drum track and then listen to and play in and physically go through and click, 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 along with the recording, the metronome click. Little tedious, but and you'll be surprised how much a professional recording even will fluctuate in tempo. And so it's something that you need to become familiar with, that recording before you start recording your own metronome click in there. But I would do that and play the click in, and that just helped make it feel like a track, an accompaniment track or practice track, rather than we're just playing along with a YouTube video. It's hard for students to start at the beginning when they don't have an introduction. So it would say 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the piece would start or whatever with the click. And that was a way that I did that. Another way that I created accompaniment tracks is I would record my own. I would get out my violin, viola, cello, double bass, and I would go through, physically record all the parts with a click track, and be able to share that with my students. I did that particularly when I couldn't find a good recording or a publisher's audio recording, particularly like an older piece or a less popular piece. And the great thing with all of these is I was able to speed up and slow down my recordings, and I'll show you how I did that. I used some software. I would load it from my computer, load that audio into my iPad, and then I would use a program called AnyTune Pro. It's an iPad app. There's lots of different apps out there that will speed up and slow down recordings, and it does so without changing the pitch. Now, with AnyTune Pro, you can also change the pitch if you really wanted to. You can go up, whole steps or half steps or whatever you want to do to transpose the piece. But mainly, I use the tempo control functions, and I will show you how that works right now in the demo for AnyTune Pro. AnyTune Pro is an iPad app. There are two versions on the iOS App Store. A free version, which is called AnyTune Pro, and then there's AnyTune Pro Plus, which is the paid version. It's $14.99 and worth every cent. The greatest things about it is it allows you to slow down your audio, and it's very easy to do using a simple slider or the plus and minus button. It does it in 5% increments.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You'll hear it start here 100%, and then I can slow it down 80% and back up. And so you can also do loop mode by dragging your A and B markers wherever you want. This is not perfect, but you can perfect that, and then you hit the loop button down there. And once you play it back from that, it will just go into loop mode. So you can very easily work on passages and then slow those passages down and just keep them in loop mode, whether it's a measure or two measures. You also have the ability just to make playlists. So I have that one, it's called demos there. and you can hear the click track I've made. And slow it way down and back up. And you can also transpose. So now we're playing Dragon Hunter in D and not in E minor. So it'd be a good tool if kids know that melody. If you want to see if they can play it transposed, you can listen to it that way. But again, I put those clicks in myself on the thing, and then you can scrub along the bottom to see the whole waveform and find a different part of the music. So very handy tool in AnyTune Pro. Lots of features that I think that you will find useful. Another thing that I made great use of during COVID teaching and before, and I will continue to do, is my YouTube channel. I was able to create videos for myself. I was able to use some of my more advanced students to record videos, practice videos. There's all different types of things that you can use, but creating a YouTube channel is very simple. You can upload videos directly from your phone to your YouTube channel without having to do a lot of fancy editing or anything like that. It's almost instantaneous. You record, you upload, it's there. If you want to get fancy with it, you can record and edit and then upload. But having a bunch of resources on my YouTube channel was really helpful. You can do promotional things. You can do concert promos for fundraisers. Pretty much anything you can put in video, you can put on your YouTube channel. But one of the things I've used a lot were video practice tracks. For me, it was a matter of getting my students to feel like I was paying more attention to their instrument and providing them with something that they could practice with at home. Isolating those individual instruments, whether it be, viola or bass or whatever kids are having the most problems. It was hard for me to record every instrument, but I would definitely put up whole pieces or sections of pieces for students who are struggling in class. And I'll show you an example just a second of a bass video I made, but I've done it during my planning period. I've also just recorded straight up in the middle of class, had a camera on me. The students are in the background. You can hear them. It's like they're playing with the orchestra, but they kind of get to focus on their particular instrument. So these don't have to be polished, finished recordings or anything crazy. They just have to be something the students can practice with. And you'd be surprised. You make a video track, practice track of a piece, and you put it on your YouTube channel, how many students use it, not just from your program, but from other programs. So I think it's a really cool way to get your program out there and kind of provide a service for the string community. So the example I'm going to show you is just from a piece called Forever Joyful by Brian Balmages. It's a double bass part. Fantastic piece. Bass part has some hemiola, has some tricky things in it, has some entrances on the end of, I believe, end of 2. And not the easiest. In this particular class, I had some decent bass players, but they struggled with counting. And so this was something that after a little while practicing with the practice track at home, they'd come back to class, and it was just a lot better. So here's Forever Joyful.
Forever Joyful. Bass part. 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2.
Bring that count off.
2, 3. 1 and 2. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2. 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. 1, 2, 2, 3. 1, 2.
Getting to hear you play that instrument is really helpful, and something that will definitely make your students hopefully find it a little bit easier for them. I'm going to stop here, and this will be the end of part 2, and we'll have part 3 coming up for you in the next video. One of the things I have done for a few years now is I have digitized all of my music, all of my sheet music that I am using. I digitize, and I also digitize it for my students. And there's several ways to do this. I have several methods I use. One is my phone app called Scanner Pro. It is a wonderful app that will automatically, obviously scan, but crop your music so that you're not having to manually crop it, and then it will do a multitude of pages, as many pages as you need. It compresses it to a PDF, and then for me, on this one, automatically uploads it to my Dropbox. So once I'm done scanning with my phone, I name it, I save it, I hit save, it uploads to my Dropbox, and I have it there, so I can access it on my phone, on my tablet, and my computer. So it's a really great app. The other method I've used is our district has gotten some newer copy machines that accept USB thumb drives, and I'm able to simply run pages through the copy machine with the thumb drive in there as a scanner, and it will scan all those pages and put them on the thumb drive, and I can take the thumb drive out, put it in my computer, and do all that. So there's several ways that I'm digitizing music, digitizing my library. It does take some time. But the reason I'm doing that is because I have everything on my 13-inch iPad Pro, and all my scores are there, and I conduct from it, and I annotate my scores, and I do everything digitally now. The great thing about that is that I'm able to mirror my iPad display on the big screen behind me, and you'll see in the photo on the slide, I have a big screen, I have a little screen, I have a smart board, and I have just a projector. So my iPad is always mirroring wirelessly what's showing on my big screen. So I do that with an Apple TV in my classroom. It's a small box. It looks like a Roku box. That's what an Apple TV is. It connects to the projector, and then I can AirPlay or mirror my screen to the Apple TV. It shows up behind me. The great thing about this, and you can see in this picture, I have a game that's the Staff Wars. This is with my guitar class I taught a few years ago, learning that way. The great thing about having my score on the screen is that students start to see what's really going on. They start to see how music works, what a conductor looks at. They're looking at a vertical, alignment of all the notes as they go by and through time. And when the students are looking at their page, they're only seeing one line of music. And so sometimes they forget that they're not always the melody. They're not always the most important. They forget what their role is. So for me, having that mirrored screen helps my students understand their role and their within the ensemble. So they understand I'm playing a rhythm part now, or I see all these slurs and this melody line. Well, I must be the melody. And then they can also see who they're playing with. So when they see that score, now they say, oh, okay, I'm playing with this other section, so I can listen for that. Or I see that these instruments are playing all these eighth notes over and over and over. So maybe I can use them to help me line up my rhythm, be the metronome. So that's the great thing. The other thing is I'm able to annotate my screen, and I'm going to show you this in the demo in a second. I annotate my screen. We can insert bowings, insert dynamics, insert reminders, breath marks, all kinds of things. And then once I have my annotated score, I can easily export that score annotated as a PDF with my students. I can share that on Dropbox and Google Drive, whatever you're using for your class management system. You can share those scores with your students too, so they have all the same markings you have, and there's just a better picture of it. There's Dr. Mark Laycock, the guest clinician with my group a little while ago. And on the little board, I have announcements and other things I use that for. And the score above me, it's always my music score, just mirrored and there. And it's just fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a quick demo of what ForScore looks like. This is an iPad app. It is probably the most popular app for scores. You can I'll show you all the different things you can do with this app. So here we go with the ForScore demo. So this is ForScore, and it allows you to obviously import. You can import any of your scores from different services like Dropbox, files from Apple, any other content providers that are providing music for Fourscore, and they keep adding more and more. You can create set lists and playlists. So I have, one for a graduation ceremony we just did, my 2 orchestra groups, and I can keep them. I have them all go all the way back for a few years here. But if I pull up, a score, then I can you can look at it, and I have my Apple Pencil, so I'm able to make marks on it, just like that. You can undo, but you can use different things. You have highlighters. You can highlight areas. You can have different color highlighters. You have different color pens. You can adjust the pens. You can do all that, and it's really great. So students are seeing me work on this at all time. If I flip my screen, I can see a full page, and I can just tap the corner of it to turn the pages and do that really quickly. If I turn it this way, I can see half page, which works pretty well for string orchestra because we only have a limited number of lines of music. But my students get to see all of the markings in my score. And if I go back, I can also show you maybe a more difficult piece. We made some bowing changes, and we have some really tough things there. So we're having to do some enharmonic spelling, and kids get to see this. So if we're looking at like letter A, for instance, okay, violas are divisi. We have a little melody going back and forth between the second violins and the cello bass, with the first violins kind of an obligato on the top there. And obviously just, lots of great things that they can see. But you can do that, and then I can take that score and I can export it, really easy by hitting the share button, and it gives me the export option to export the original PDF, the annotated PDF, or a Fourscore file, so you can share with other people. There's a recorder built in. There's a little piano built in that'll play notes. Not sure if you heard that. There's other tools. There's a metronome built in. I kind of like that metronome because there it is right here at the top. You can actually turn it on just a visible metronome. So if you start it up, there's really fast. You can adjust the tempo, and it'll just be visible. Then there's also there's an audible one. The visible one, you can kind of see the outside of my screen that's flashing there. You can have both going, and then you can also, there's a tuner in here. You can have it play pitches. Sounds pretty good, just one at a time, And then there's a built-in tuner. So it really does have a lot of features that you can use as well. So you can search for pieces, all kinds of different things that you can use with Fourscore, but very handy tool. It's around $5. You can create bookmarks and playlists and look at all your library. I have about 1,000 scores in mine right now, but check it out. It's a really great tool.
Another thing I've done is I've had students listening to our own rehearsal or other recordings, just critical listening. And I think that the more we have students do this, the better their ears are going to be for understanding that level of quality that we're looking for. And it kind of just helps them just develop a discerning ear for good intonation, for maybe good rhythm, for good ensemble, right? You can do it without video. You can do it with video. So one of the ways I've done it is I've recorded a portion of a rehearsal, and I post that audio online. So I put it on Dropbox, or we use Microsoft in my district, so I'm putting it up on OneDrive. But I put it up there, I make a link to it, and then I either put it on our website, or I put it we use Microsoft Teams, I put it within Teams in the assignment page, or I'll upload the audio directly there. And that way students have access to it real fast. Then I create specific guidelines, things I want for them to do for providing their feedback. So do I want them to talk about rhythm? Do I want them to talk about intonation? Or do I leave it open? Or do I make a rubric for them to use? So this isn't a way to create a great assignment, just having students do critical listening. Sometimes I'll ask students to compare this recording and this recording. So I'll maybe find 2 YouTube videos with the same piece, and group A and group B, contrast and compare, Again, it makes them listen, makes them think, and it's been really, really helpful. So here's one of the ways, way I would do it. You're recording your rehearsal or whatever on your phone or your computer, whatever you want to use. There's lots of great handheld devices out there. recording devices. Obviously, your phone, most phones do a pretty good job, especially for something, you know, a demo recording like this. Share that link or embed the audio onto your website. And then you notify your students with the email or in your CMS or wherever you're distributing your information. And then you can have them respond with an online form like a Google Doc, Google Form, or even using a website called Padlet. Padlet is really cool. Check it out. It allows students just to put up their thoughts and ideas, and then it shows them to everybody so they can easily share. When you're using an online form like a Google form, it's not necessarily so easy to let everybody see everybody else's answers, but with Padlet, it's all right there. So if you want a more collaborative, listening exercise, this is a great way to do it. So here's one I put up. I'm asking students to please comment below with 2 positive comments and 3 constructive comments from each piece. We are playing those 3 pieces, and your name's on the comment. And I'll show you what that looks like if I can get to it real quick. Here, I got to get out of my full screen, and you'll see that got to make an edit here. I forgot to have that ready. Okay. Continuing to edit, blah, blah, blah. So here's the and now. And so here is the assignment. Here are the 3 listening, and you're going to hear
Mozart Cassation in D.
Very raw, just me announcing the piece. We're going to play through it. And then you have your students, logging in and leaving their comments, right? You could do this on YouTube too. But again, their comments are going to be visible by other people, and you have to remind them of that and tell them to be, thoughtful. But obviously, like some students are going to write a lot. Some are going to make like a bullet list. You can put your parameters how you want them to be, but a really great way to allow students to listen and be constructive and collaborative at the same time. A few years ago, I started using practice vlogs. And if you don't know what a vlog is, it's a video log. There are lots of vloggers out there that will log in and record themselves and put it up on YouTube of them just talking about a particular topic, right? And a practice vlog for me has been something that's been really effective. It's made students kind of reflect on their practicing and provide some kind of focus on their practicing. So I'm going to show more of this in my other session on home practice, but very briefly, this is a way for students to record a sample of their practice. I don't want to hear a 30-minute video of them practicing, because I won't have time to listen to everybody do that. But a short sample, I usually say at minimum of 5 minutes, but no more than 7 of their practice. And I ask students to, I provide a prompt for them. So I say, well, what are you going to work on this week? What technical skills are you focusing on? What measures are you focusing on, et cetera, et cetera. Or sometimes I'll keep it open-ended and I'll say, you get to choose what you want to work on, but I don't want to hear you performing something. I want to hear you practicing something. So we talk about the difference between performing or playing through something and practicing something. But for me, it's a formative assignment. It allows for me to provide some timely and meaningful feedback to them. I don't listen to all 5 minutes. Nobody has time to do that. So I'll listen to the beginning. I want to hear what they're doing, and I'll kind of skip through the video to see what they're working on. And so here's an example of maybe what a practice vlog would look like.
So I'm going to be working on Allegro in D and section E, so 48 to 51. And I'm going to be working on the fingerings, like shifting from first to second, and then intonation. And then I'm going to slow it down, break it into measures first, and play it just the notes without the rhythm and then put it all back together with the rhythms.
So then she starts practicing, and what I found on the practice logs is that I really start to see what the students' strengths and weaknesses are. I see how they practice. I kind of see how they think, where they're coming from. And that helps me a lot to help them and to help my whole orchestra, as a matter of fact, find the parts we need to work on, strategies that are missing, the technical spots, all that just from watching them practice. And so it's been a really, really positive thing. And sometimes if things get busy and I don't necessarily always have time to listen to all of them or grade them, I'll take a class and I'll just do it for credit, completion. In a different class I'll assess, and I'll kind of mix it up. So they're not always sure what I'm going to do, whether it's going to be actually me grading, listening, assessing feedback, or if I'm going to count it as a completion grade. But at least I know that their instruments are at home and they've come out of their case and they're working on something. And if it's only for 5 minutes, it's only for 5 minutes. That's on the honor system. But I still feel that this is a more authentic and meaningful assignment than a practice log, which the students aren't going to be telling the truth anyways, correct? So we'll talk more about practice in my next session on home practice. The other thing I've done for a long time, this is going way back to the days of really cheap iPods with really terrible cameras, and I would buy those and record students' performances or playing tests or whatever, or auditions, and I would keep a record of those. So an e-portfolio, lots of different ways to do it. One of the things that I used a lot during COVID times was Flipgrid. Flipgrid is a free website. It allows you to create classes and create assignments or different topics for students to be able to work on. And there's lots of flexibility in this, but the great thing is it'll work on a kid's phone, tablet, computer, and it's really, really simple to use. They can spruce up their recordings with some emojis and filters and things like that to make it more like Instagram, but a great way to collect videos. So I like having an e-portfolio so that I can show my administrators, I can show parents, especially those that say, well, why does my kid have a B in orchestra? Well, let me show you their video, right? And it just shows that evidence of learning. And when I've had students, that were like less confident and considering maybe even dropping my class, I can take those videos and take their portfolios from a year ago or 2 years ago and say, look how far you've come. Look what you used to play, how you used to play, and look how you play now. So it's a good confidence builder. I'll just show you some examples. I have a young cellist here, middle of 6th grade. Not bad. But when you look at his contact point, his posture is a little low, ear up, etc. But definitely heard much worse, but then you're going to see the next year, it's middle of his 3rd year, and you're see those working nicer. And then the next year, 8th grade year. You have that second position going on. The bow hold, it looks a lot better. The contact point's getting better. And then here's later in that year. just love to see that improvement, the adjustment of the intonation, the shifting. It's really cool. And if you go back and, look at from 6th grade to 8th grade, he's made a huge advancement, right? And so having these kind of portfolios really help. Here's an example of a violinist in the middle of a 7th grade year, or beginning of 7th grade year. Okay, kind of a timid player, doing okay. Rhythm is pretty good. Here's a little bit later that year. Okay, but you look and he's kind of not the most comfortable. That summer, I asked him if he was interested in playing the bass. His eyes lit up, took the bass home, took a few private lessons, and ended up making all-county orchestra that year on bass. And it just looks a lot more confident. Here's later that year. You see he's getting around the bass pretty good and really attacking it. But again, really amazing to see that transformation, and it's cool to have that video evidence, right? Some of the hardware I recommend for shooting video nowadays. This is an HD camera. It's a Zoom Q8, and it's pictured there on the screen. It has great microphones, so you're getting awesome sound. The video's pretty okay. It does have also 2 more XLR inputs on the back to accept external microphones. So you can actually record with 2 external microphones plus the built-in microphones for a pretty good sound. I've had students use this device of the schools for some college auditions, and they got in and they had really good audio video quality. So check that out. I think it's under $400. The MIDI controller, there's some little ones that I use that are, portable, especially if you're moving classrooms and whatnot. There's a couple models there. These are really handy. Obviously, a bigger keyboard's nice because you can play on it, but for just playing some parts in or playing clicks in, these little ones are great. And then whether you're in a classroom that has a fixed speaker setup or maybe you need portable speakers, lots of different options there for Bluetooth speakers, trying to find things that sound good and loud. And then my favorite tool, probably my favorite teaching tool of all time, is the Yamaha Harmony Director. It was the HD 200, but the new model that just came out in the spring and it's kind of back ordered coming out this summer is the HD 300. I believe it's around $700, and it is just an amazing keyboard. It does play with the most unique feature of all, and it'll play in just pitch or pure intonation. So you're able to hold a chord down, and it'll adjust the third of a major chord down, that 13.6 cents, and make it sound awesome. And that's obviously what we're trying to train our students to do as they get older. Great for high schools. And just an awesome tool all around. It has a built-in metronome, lots of other features. I could probably do a whole presentation on the HD 300, but check that out if you're interested in using that with your students. Some apps too that I recommended: AnyTune Pro, Scanner Pro, and I also recommend Flipgrid for recording those videos. Have to do special thanks to Hellender Corporation, to Dario, Eastman Strings, and then my school district, Fulton County Schools. They're always really super duper supportive of what I do. If you have questions or would like more information, my email is charleslaux1@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out to me, ask questions. I love talking tech. You can also check me out on social media, on Facebook and Twitter. Both of them are /CharlesLaux or @CharlesLaux. And again, my website, orchestrateacher.net, has slides from this presentation and pretty much everything I've ever done. You can scan the QR code or just dial it in on your web browser. I hope that all of you have a wonderful summer and a great start to the school year next year. There's a lot to look forward to, and I know we have a lot of work to do,
but it's exciting work. And I hope some of these things I showed you today will be helpful, and have a wonderful year, everybody.